On a freezing December night in 1926, a woman drove her car to the edge of a chalk pit and walked away into the dark. By morning, the vehicle was found completely abandoned. The headlights were still burning, pointing out over the cliff edge, and a heavy fur coat was left resting on the seat. The disappearance triggered an immediate, massive response. For 11 days, 1,000 police officers and throngs of local volunteers scoured the surrounding hills looking for any trace of the driver. The missing woman was Agatha Christie, already known worldwide as the most successful mystery writer alive. When she finally surfaced nearly 2 weeks later, she was sitting calmly in a spa hotel in Harrogate, 200 miles north of the chalk pit. She had checked into the hotel under the surname Neal, the exact name of her husband's mistress. She insisted with total apparent sincerity that she had absolutely no idea who she was. Cases like this introduce a chilling paradox. The missing person hasn't actually gone anywhere physically. Their body is present and safe, while their entire personal identity has simply been evacuated. You have likely experienced a minor version of this mechanism yourself. You drive a familiar route and arrive home without remembering the turns. Or you read a full page of a book and realize your brain absorbed none of the words. Doctors call the extreme version of this a dissociative fugue. The mental autopilot takes over entirely, running the body for days or even weeks while the conscious self disappears. To an outside observer, a person in a fugue state seems entirely ordinary. They aren't stumbling or confused. They handle cash, board trains, follow directions, and make pleasant small talk with strangers. Because the physical body continues to function flawlessly, the disappearance is purely internal. The brain holds the person psychologically hostage. In August of 2008, a young teacher named Hannah Upp left her apartment and vanished into the streets of New York City. She was missing for roughly 20 days. Security cameras captured her walking into stores and drifting through gyms, acting completely normal. When she was eventually pulled alive from the waters of New York Harbor by a passing ferry crew, she had zero memory of the prior 3 weeks. An even more extreme case happened in 1985. A newspaper reporter named Jody Roberts vanished from Washington state. She was found 12 years later living in Sitka, Alaska. She had built an entirely new life with a job and relationships, yet retained no memory of her previous identity. These extreme memory wipes leave behind a medical paradox. Patients retain their semantic memory, the brain's archive for general knowledge, language, and learned skills. They lose the autobiography of themselves, but they still know how to drive a car and order coffee. These cases prove the brain possesses a surgical ability to completely separate a person's identity from their daily physical functionality. To understand how the brain executes this separation, researchers in 2023 pulled together the entire body of neuroimaging work on dissociative amnesia to look for a common pattern. This diagram shows a brain cross-section, highlighting what scans revealed. There is severely reduced activity right here in the hippocampus, the structure responsible for retrieving memories. Simultaneously, activity drops in the right prefrontal cortex, a region involved in suppression. Researchers concluded this is not a random system failure. It appears to be an active suppression circuit working overtime to block the conscious mind from accessing its own life story. In nearly every documented case, this biological protocol is triggered by severe trauma, profound loss, or unbearable stress. The brain actively chooses a state of total oblivion. It locks away personal history to protect the physical body from psychological agony it cannot survive. Because this mechanism is tied so closely to extreme stress, clinicians still struggle to define the exact line between an involuntary biological defense and a subconscious choice to walk away. Agatha Christie checking into a hotel under her husband's mistress's name perfectly illustrates this tension. The detail is too neat for pure accident, yet psychologists argue that the shock of betrayal makes it a genuine fugue. The wounded mind simply reached for the name burning hottest in her thoughts. Coming back from this state is deeply disturbing. Survivors often wake up to find themselves in a strange city, wearing unfamiliar clothes and holding a job they have no memory of taking. A fugue leaves a disturbing realization in its wake. The body continues to function, making choices and meeting strangers, while the conscious self remains entirely locked out. It helps to look at the exact opposite condition, post-traumatic stress. In PTSD, the brain's memory suppression fails, and traumatic events roar back uninvited. In a fugue, that suppression works perfectly. We usually think of forgetting as a biological failure. Fugue reframes it as a radical, locked-door weapon of self-preservation. In every one of these vanishings, from Hannah Upp to Agatha Christie, the missing person never actually left. They were physically present the entire time. Only their self was taken. The mind itself acts as the kidnapper. It erases the identity to preserve the biology, doing the only thing it can to keep the person alive.